What is going on, everyone? My name is Andy. Welcome back to another FPL video. In this one, it's my team selection for Game Week 24. So I'm going to take you through how the team is shaping up, transfer thoughts, captaincy plans, all that good stuff. And I'll quickly show you how I did in Game Week 23 as well. If you've not already hit the subscribe button, I'm trying to hit 350,000 subscribers before the end of the season. It only takes 2 seconds to do. So if you've been enjoying the content but you haven't yet hit that button, please make sure you do it. It'd be much appreciated. All right, Game Week 23. Surprise, surprise, another red arrow. I just cannot get a run of green arrows going whatsoever. So I fell from about 580,000 to 677k. It's not that big of a drop, but it's happened a lot of times since the World Cup where I get one really good green arrow and then a lot of kind of small red arrows, like 100k drop here, 100k drop there. And it just continues to happen. I scored 74 points. I did take a 4-point hit. Now that hit was Luke Shaw to Tarkowski, and Luke Shaw obviously did really well, kept the clean sheet, got the assist as well. That funded my other two moves. So the reason I brought Tarkowski in was because he's got the double in 25. He's only 4.2 million, so very cheap to sit on the bench. And like I said, he funded the other moves. One was Ben White to Gabriel, and the other one was Martinelli to Odegaard. There was a lot of talk about Arsenal transfers last week. Now, they didn't pay off, but I feel okay about doing the moves because Ben White didn't play against Man City, and of course you can turn around and say that is the fixture to miss if you're going to miss one, right? I completely get that, but because they're probably going to concede, which they did, but it at least was more minutes that Gabriel was on the pitch to possibly score from a set piece or something like that, and going forward, I'm much more comfortable having Gabriel than Ben White. And similarly with Martinelli to Odegaard, I think Martinelli actually ended up outscoring Odegaard because he came off the pitch before Brentford scored, so he kept the clean sheet point. But again, he came off just after the 60th minute against Brentford, and Trossard was actually ready to come on before that. The ball just didn't go out of play, so that could have been another 1-pointer. And then against Man City, he also came off before the likes of Odegaard and Saka again. So I think, although it hasn't worked out this week, I'm hopeful that if we keep Arsenal players, up until maybe game week 28, 29 or something like that, it will end up paying off eventually. It's just a shame it didn't happen this week. But elsewhere, pretty poor. The only two players that really returned for me, which are somewhat differentials, are Salah and Saka. And in the 1 week where Salah finally scores, gets the 3 bonus points, what does Kevin De Bruyne do? He goes and outscores him. Now, to be fair, he had a double game week, and I think De Bruyne owners have been probably as unfortunate as Salah owners in terms of the lack of points that have been coming. So I think, look, I can only say fair play to anyone that kept De Bruyne. You deserved that. But it kind of wiped out any gains from Salah. And obviously Saka did well, but he's a bit more higher owned now than he was before this double game week. Haaland just doesn't matter, and everyone else blank. Like, Ederson has been such a nightmare for me. Last night, he was time wasting from as soon as Man City scored. The yellow card was so obviously coming, and he kept time wasting, right? It wasn't even subtle about it. He gets the yellow card, then he concedes, obviously, from the penalty. He tells Saka which way to hit the ball. Saka obliges, and he dives the other way. That was just typical of having Ederson in my team. And I think Ake's super frustrating because in another world, instead of doing Patterson to Mings, I do Ake to Mings to free up a Man City spot. And then this week I do Fernandes to Mahrez, which meant I would have kept Shaw. And that would have been 20 plus points. But those kind of 50-50 decisions, as I would see them, they're just not going my way at the moment. So I've got to hope it starts soon because it's getting to the point where it's going to be difficult to get that overall rank to a place where I want it to be. There's still lots of blanks and double game weeks to contend with. You can get big swings, but those swings can go either way. So it could get even worse, and I'm preparing myself for that. But ultimately, I think the team on paper looks okay. Another Mitrovic blank against Nottingham Forest at home. He had something like 0.7, 0.8 XG, loads of shots, just didn't come off again. Fernandes obviously blanked as well. He was like the differential that I kept. A lot of people sold him. I don't know. I feel like on paper the team looks pretty good. It's just not performing how I want it to perform. Who knows? Maybe Game Week 24 will be that time. So because I took the 4-point hit last week, I've only got one free transfer for this week. And I think my overall aim is to try and roll it if possible. Because in Game Week 25, we've got the blank game week and the double game week. I'm not quite sure what moves I want to make. And having 2 free transfers would give me the most flexibility. Obviously, we've still got stuff like Man United versus Barcelona in the Europa League. On Friday, there's press press conferences to come. There might be injuries and knocks that force my hand into a transfer. And there are some one transfer moves I could make this week. I'll speak about them as I go, but I don't think they're better than just having 2 free transfers next week and then, you know, kind of reassessing, right? One of those players I could think about getting rid of is Ederson, because he has been absolutely awful. And we go back to when I made the move, Kepa to Ederson for a hit. It looks very, very stupid right now, and I can accept that that was a bad move. I still think I've been a little bit unlucky with the actual points that Ederson has got, considering that Man City are one of the best defences in the league, but it is what it is. The reason that, to be fair, right, they've got Nottingham Forest away and Bournemouth away in game week 25. With those fixtures, there's not a massive rush to get rid of him, but I do think with future transfers, I'm probably going to need the money that him to a cheaper goalkeeper would allow. Now, the one that most people have got is Kepa, and he probably is the best move. My only issue is he's got Southampton at home this week, so this is the week that I would want to do it, but I really want 2 free transfers for next week. Whereas if I do it in game week 25, Ederson has got Bournemouth away and Kepa has Spurs away, and I think that Spurs will score in that game, right? So I wouldn't see Kepa getting a clean sheet. So then I'd be thinking, well, is that the right week to bring Kepa in? But I need the money. I think I would probably talk myself into Pickford, who's got a double game week in game week 25 and also plays in game week 28. So that's my worry, that I won't do the transfer this week. Next week I won't want to go for Kepa, so I'll go for Pickford, and the pain and misery of all those 10-pointers from Kepa will continue. But I think I've got to hold on to Ederson. I think they're both away games, but Nottingham Forest and Bournemouth are both games that Man City could get a clean sheet. So I'll reassess next week. If I need the cash, I'll either talk myself into Pickford or I'll just get Kepa in game week 25, even though he's playing Spurs away. With the defence, it kind of picks itself this week because Mings has got a knock, and either way he's playing against Arsenal, so I'm not expecting a clean sheet. I really hope he's back fit for game week 25, because the only real reason I bought him in was for kind of future proofing, because Villa had a game in 25 and 28, so it'd be really unfortunate if he misses that game. It did sound like a minor thing, but there's not really been any positive news since. So we'll have to wait and see what is said in the press conference. But either way, I'm going to bench him this week and I'll reassess for game week 25. With Ake, he's obviously got a good fixture, arguably better than Gabriel and Trippier's fixture this week, but I'm just not convinced he's going to start. That was part of the problem last week. I played him knowing he was probably not going to start against Villa. He would start against Arsenal and concede, and that's exactly what happened. He did. There was a shot from, I think it was Rodri, like a header, which fell onto Ake's foot and did hit the bar last night. I mean, that would have been great, but it didn't happen. So I think I've got to bench Ake, and I think he will probably be one of the transfers I make in game week 25, because we just cannot trust any of the Man City defenders. Even a Kanji, who I would have brought in ahead of Ake for game week 23, if you wanted a defender, didn't start either of the games. It's just not worth it. Like, they don't have that attacking upside. They don't have the guaranteed minutes either. I just want rid of Ake long term. If I think he's going to start, I could play him ahead of any of my defenders. It would probably be Tarkowski, but I just don't think I'm going to have that confidence, and I think I'm going to play Tarkowski instead against Leeds. I'm not massively confident about a clean sheet, but Tarkowski scored in game week 22. He also hit the post against Liverpool. He was the one from the corner, I think it was, took the header, hit the post, and that's when Liverpool broke and Salah scored. But Tarkowski hit the post, and maybe he's a bit of a menace now in Sean Dyche's Everton team. Who knows? So I'm going to play him probably against Leeds at home because of the doubts around Ake. With Trippier, I think he's going to concede this week. I think Newcastle can probably win that game. They're good enough to do that. And their defence has been great this season, so they could keep a clean sheet. But up against Liverpool is difficult. So I think they might concede at least once. And obviously he might lose his clean sheet, but it just comes back to the point of I don't have any players on the bench that I want to play instead, and it's a similar situation with Gabriel. So my defence kind of picks itself, unless we get early news that Ake is starting, in which case I might swap him in for Tarkowski. But I'm kind of okay playing him. He's got a little bit of set-piece threat. Hopefully Sean Dyche gets the clean sheet against Leeds. And hopefully, I don't know, Ederson can do something and not concede from like the one chance that, you know, the opposition have or something like that. That would be nice. Just 6 points. That's all I want from you. So this midfield 5 only got together last week, and it's probably only going to last for this week, because in game week 25, I'm likely going to have to sell Bruno Fernandes to use that cash to fund fund another move, probably for a second Liverpool player, either Trent Alexander-Arnold or Darwin Núñez. So I spoke earlier about future transfers. If I want to do Fernandes to Matoma and Greenwood to Núñez, I have exactly 0.0 in the bank. So if there is a price change, like Matoma goes up or something like that, that is where the Ederson to a cheaper goalkeeper transfer comes into play. But again, I want to put off that decision till next week because I might decide that Darwin Núñez isn't an option. I want to go for Trent instead. And I know it sounds crazy to do Fernandes who blanks to Matoma who also blanks in 25, but if I can rely on Mings and Ake, which maybe I can for minutes in game week 25, Greenwood to a forward that also plays will give me 11 players. So getting Matoma in sets me up for 26 and 27. But again, I'll talk about that a little bit more next week. This week, I think Fernandes just looks like a great option for Leicester at home. We know he's on penalties. Even if he plays 90 minutes in the Europa League, he'll probably go and play 90 minutes in the league as well, as long as he hasn't picked up a knock or an injury or something like that. And I think it will be quite a difficult game as long as Brendan Rodgers sticks to Iheanacho, the way that Maddison's playing right now. But I still don't think the Leicester defence is quite there, and Man United will get plenty of opportunities at home. So I'm happy to keep Fernandes for one more week, but he will be the cash cow eventually. I don't think having someone that costs nearly 10 million in Fernandes is worth keeping long term. Obviously, Rashford is great. I don't have any plans to get rid of him anytime soon, although again, after game week 25, he might have to be sold, but that's not a conversation for this week. I think if Haaland had any kind of a knock, and I always thought he was going to play against Arsenal for what it's worth, then Rashford would probably be my captain. I think he looks that good for this week against Leicester. But for now, he's just a player I've got that's not getting the captain's armband. Saka and Odegaard obviously staying. Decent fixture this week. The double in 25. We know they play in 28. All that good stuff. I'm very happy with my Arsenal triple up. And then we've got Salah, who obviously scored last week, which is great. Got the 3 bonus. I'm not really expecting too much against Newcastle because that defence is great. I obviously can see a way that Liverpool score because their attack is also very good. They've continued to put up really good expected goal numbers, but it's obviously not necessarily Salah that might score that single goal against Newcastle. But I'm glad to have him for game week 25 and beyond. There's no point in getting rid of him. I think if you've got De Bruyne, despite what happened in the Everton game, despite what happened last night against Arsenal, he just looks like a very easy hold for game week 24 for Nottingham Forest away, and then an easy switch to Salah in game week 25. I think that's absolutely the plan. But for me, there is no need to switch him to Harry Kane. There's no need to switch him to De Bruyne and then back again. So he's obviously going to stay as well. So that's the midfield 5. Who knows? In a few weeks' time, maybe I'll switch back to a 3-4-3 because ultimately 3-5-2 hasn't gave me too many extra points. But I do think it looks pretty good for this week. And then up front is, of course, Haaland and Mitrovic, as it has been for a long time. I'm even getting bored of saying it myself, at least with the midfield, right? Salah, Rashford and Saka have been there a long time, but Odegaard's come in. I had Mason Mount before, and then I switched to Fernandes. There's been a little bit of change, but there hasn't been up front. And I was really hoping that I would come into the Game Week 24 team selection, being able to tell you that Mitrovic had done really well against Nottingham Forest at home, got at least a goal, maybe some bonus points, and I was happy to have him for 24 and 25, but that is not the case. And unfortunately, he plays Brighton away this week, which is very tough. But I just don't see a good one transfer move when I've only got 0.1 million in the bank. A lot of you will be looking at João Felix, for example, who I do like. Southampton at home this week, plays in 25, plays in 28, and that game week 28 fixture is Everton at home. I think his minutes are going to be pretty secure. He's shooting a lot, just looks great, but I can't get him in one move, and I'm not going to take a hit to fund that this week. Although I guess Ederson to Kepa, Mitrovic to João Felix might work, but I just don't think it's worth a 4-point hit. And ultimately, because Mitrovic does have that game in game week 25, he's probably worth holding on to. And I suspect when I do want to change him, I will go to Tony for the double instead. So I like João Felix. I just don't have a great way to bring him in this week. And look, Mitrovic has been bad, but I don't think he was a bad pick, and I don't think it was a bad decision to hold on to him. It's just unfortunate that happens in FPL sometimes. The points don't come in when you expect them to. Who knows? Maybe he'll get something against Brighton, but I'm not really expecting it. I'm really just holding him for the blank, and I'll decide what to do after game week 25. And then Haaland is, of course, captain, because when isn't he, right? He just has to be captain at the moment. He he was fine against... Actually, it wasn't just fine. He played really well against Arsenal. I think better than a lot of people expected him to, which I know sounds crazy because he scored a ridiculous amount of goals. But I think there's been a lot of talk about, you know, does he fit into this Man City system? Are they better without him? But last night he was just really good and he's fit, so I expect him to play against Nottingham Forest, and I'm not willing to risk that against everyone else that's going to go for him. That is just a good fixture. The only other player that I would even consider is probably Rashford. Maybe Fernandes because he's got penalties, but realistically I would just go for Rashford. But I'm not going to fight against the crowd. I'm just going to keep on Haaland. So that is the team. Like I said, I've got one free transfer. I just don't see a good single transfer move this week. So I'm just going to hold on, roll into next week. And next week could be anything from just using the 2 free transfers to taking a -4 or possibly even taking a -8. There's lots of different routes I can go depending on how much I want to pigeonhole myself into certain kind of chips, because I think if I get lots of Liverpool players in, it probably means I'm going to have to free hit in game week 28 if Fulham beat Leeds in the FA Cup. But again, that's something to worry about for game week 25. For now, I'm sticking like it is, Haaland captain, and who knows, maybe I'll get a slightly better red arrow this week, maybe even a green arrow. If you enjoyed the video, hit the like button, subscribe if you haven't already, trying to get 350k before the end of the season, and I'll catch you again tomorrow for final thoughts.